first thing we need to do is you always want to start with a sketch. I did a couple sketches to kind of come up with this whole tutorial before I even got on here to tell you this stuff. So I'll show you the sketch that I had already done, and it's right here. This album cover is kind of what we're going to go with here. And see how I've written myself some keywords. Iconic, simple, stunning, vintage. These things are just there for my own reference to remind myself the look I'm going for. So what we're going to go with is this kind of dark, skeletal girl, and then simple typography beneath it. And I imagine this kind of being black, kind of grainy, maybe a dusty album cover. And then this is all going to be illustrated with the Wacom tablet. And so it's going to be this kind of detailed line art. So once you have this sketch and scanned in, you don't exactly need to reference it in your work per se, but you can at least just have it on the side to look at to remind yourself, okay, here's what I'm going for. All of these ideas are out of my head. They're on paper now. Now I just need to execute it. And a lot of these other decisions will come along in the software. When you're working, your ideas might change. You might accidentally stumble upon something that looks cool. So we're going to just head right into Photoshop and start working. So what we're going to do is start a new document. Now typically album covers are about 4.75 inches by 4.75 inches. I usually like to work a little bit bigger just in case. So let's start with 7 by 7. At 300 dpi. Anytime you're doing something for print, generally 300 dpi is your resolution to get maximum quality after it's printed. Now, a lot of people will tell you for print you can work in CMYK mode, but CMYK mode in Photoshop sometimes slows me down and hinders a lot of the things that I'm doing, and some of the filters and effects that I'm going to use aren't even enabled in CMYK mode. And I think it's kind of unnecessary. So what I usually like to do is work on RGB, and then in the end, after it's all said and done, right before I go to print, I flatten it, convert it to CMYK, and then send it off. And you'll notice the colors do change slightly. If you're using any real bright greens, any kind of neon stuff, that's all going to get dulled down in the CMYK conversion. So kind of got to be careful of that. But in this design we're doing today, it's not going to matter. We can start in RGB and keep it in RGB the whole way through. So here we are. We got a blank canvas. Now what the heck are we going to do? So, well, let's remind ourselves. Here's our sketch. We have this girl, a skull, this kind of simple layout, and we want to have this dark background with like kind of some dirtiness to it. So I browsed around and I found a pose of a girl that I liked, and in this kind of position here. And actually, I do a lot of the browsing before I even sketched, because sometimes I might be inspired by different stock photography that I see. Like if I see a certain emotion going on or a certain pose, that might influence my sketch. So that's actually what happened in this particular case. Let's open up this reference photo here. Well, actually, this is my skull that I took, but let's take a look at this. This was the original stock photo that I grabbed. It's on DeviantArt. The person's name was Ren Stock, so make sure you check them out. I kind of like this pose, and my original idea was to have this whole figure here and have some more like kind of circular spike elements coming out, maybe some rays, but that felt more like too detailed of a t-shirt design, and I wanted to go more iconic, more of an album cover. And this is kind of a long format, so it wouldn't have worked very well for the album cover that I'm going for. So what I did was I cropped it, and this is essentially the basic shape that I'm going for right here. And so this is my reference. So I'm going to open this in Photoshop. Okay, well, let's just open it here. Okay, So what I'm just going to do is copy it, Control A to select all, Control C to copy. Then I'm going to paste it into this document. Okay, this is my CD cover document, and you can see it's not quite big enough. So I'm just going to press Control T, transform, and hold Alt and Shift as I drag these corners up and get it about that big. Now, you know, sure, I resized it and I lost some of the quality and it looks blurry, but that's okay. That's okay. I really don't care because I'm going to be drawing over top of it. It can be bad quality. I'm going to put those details in with my Wacom tablet. I'm going to draw the line art however it looks good to me. So it can be blurry, and really it's just there for reference. So now let's take the skull. Okay, now what I wanted to do is replace this lady's face with the skull. Problem is, I'm not going to be able to find a stock photo in that exact angle that I need. So, fortunately for me, I had already had a skull sitting on my desk, as you can see it here. And this is my desk area. And here's the skull, one of the skull pictures I took. I really held it in my hand to try to get the right angle. You can see here the girl's face, and I just took a couple different pictures there to see if I can what I can get. And this one is kind of blurry, but it's actually the best pose that we've got. So I'm going to go ahead and open image 5304 in Photoshop. This one was my favorite. So I'm just going to quickly select the skull with my lasso tool here. I can be real rough. I'm just trying to get this out of this picture and into my CD cover document. I'm just going to Control V and paste it right on top. Alright, now you can see it's obviously way too big. So we're going to, this is the photo manipulation part. We're going to combine these two photos together into one halfway decent, convincing, image here that we're going to use for reference. So one thing I like to do, if I'm going to position this in the general vicinity of where her head is, I'm going to create a copy of it. And on this one, I created a copy there by alt dragging that layer to duplicate it. It's kind of a cool technique there. So with this skull layer selected, I'm just going to go to Filter, Stylize, Find Edges. And what it did there was just kind of found the edges, essentially, and it kind of darkened them up. And then I'm going to go ahead and invert this by pressing Control I, and then screen that out. Now you can kind of see I've got this outlined version of it. So I set this layer to screen, which means that it took the black colors and made them invisible, and the white colors and made them visible. Doesn't quite seem that dark enough, so I'm going to duplicate it again, and then I'm going to merge those two together by pressing Control E. So now I'm going to resize this by pressing Control T. Now let's move this into position here. You can kind of see it's not going to be exact, but we're going to do the best we can. You might have to do a little warping, a little squashing, stretching, but it's generally right there. Now I might want to squish it, rotate it. Actually, no, don't want to rotate it that much. See, this is important. The eye sockets line up with these eyes here. And the nose cavity here lines up with her nose. And this is where the cheekbone would be. You can see the skull right there. This is where the teeth would go. And it looks like this jawline on the skull that I have is absolutely huge. And this and her jawline is much smaller. So what we're going to do is press Enter to confirm that transformation. And one thing I want to make sure I do is keep this layer transformed as well. So I'm just going to select this layer and press Control Shift T to transform again. Okay, so now this one has moved just the same way I transformed this layer. Now I'm going to take my lasso tool again And see how the teeth here don't exactly line up with her lips? And the jawline doesn't exactly line up with her jawline? I'm going to just select that and do a little bit transforming of that layer specifically. So we're just going to kind of squish it, move it up, you know, just kind of, you can go to even do some warping, kind of position it into place right where her jawline would be. You know, you can kind of use your judgment on this. Looks like it's pretty good, I think. Kind of jawline goes like that. It goes around her chin, comes back down. Alright, now I transform that. Now I want to keep that selection. Now activate this layer and do the same thing. Shift Control T. It did not work. Maybe I need to reselect here and press Shift Control T. Okay, well, that did not work. So I'm just going to have to do it again manually here. Sorry about that. But I'm just going to try to get it lined up again. Just basically. Get these teeth lined up right where hers are. Get it it doesn't have to be exact, just kind of enough. You know, move this cheekbone over. Okay, so we don't really need this glowy layer anymore. We can turn that off. And I'm going to clean this up, clean up the edges around the skull here, and make it fit a little bit more with the photo. So this is where we're going to get in to a little bit more of the photo manipulation. So let's go ahead and select. I'm going to actually put a mask on this. Layer, mask, reveal all. And then see how I put this mask down there. And I'm going to be painting with black. And this black is going to mask out that area. And I'm using a layer mask better than an eraser or as opposed to the eraser, because I'll be able to change it if I happen to delete too much or, you know, get rid of parts that I don't want to get rid of. It's a little safer. So I'm just kind of going in. I don't have to be too precise, but I'm going to be pretty close to the edge here. Just going to go all the way around. Alright. Now, basically have got that. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to put her hair back on top. See how her hair comes here? I've got to make sure that the skull is underneath that. So one good way to do that is I'll just go ahead and duplicate her layer and just change the opacity a little bit so I can see where that hair is. See how you can see through it right there? I'm going to go back onto this guy, this skull layer, and just rough out that hairline. Actually, I can take down the opacity some. Get that hairline in there. Alright. Now let's see how that looks. Okay, you see how I've got it in there like that? And I'm going to draw directly on top of this. So it doesn't matter how much it looks right now. Okay, so don't need her anymore. And I don't need this. I'm going to delete those. Now I'm going to go ahead and select both these layers and press Ctrl G to group them and rename it to like ref as in reference, and that way I can just kind of hide and show my reference as I'm working on it.